Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Fellowship of Nanaimo. Our mission is to create spiritual connection and bring compassion, discovery, and social justice to life. My name is Catherine Hazel, and I am your service leader this morning. My pronouns are she, her. Could you please take a moment now to silence or turn off your cell phones? Thank you. And I just remembered I didn't do that. I will do that later. Uh-oh. And remember to turn them on afterwards. I've sometimes not done that until Tuesday.
I just call that every day of the week.
Yeah. Let's say hello to everyone attending on Zoom. So you turn around and you wave at the frog, and then they can see you. Great.
Hello, Zoom friends.
Yeah. Whatever your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, whatever your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, whatever makes you who you are warmly welcome here. In keeping with our Unitarian Universalist aspiration of radical inclusion, we invite you to share your pronouns as well as your name, if you are comfortable doing so. We have a diversity of voices on Sunday mornings, so our services vary from week to week. They usually run from 60 to 75 minutes. If this is your first time with us, a very special welcome to you. If you're joining us online, please consider sharing your contact information with us. You can do this by going to the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and typing it in there. We'd love to welcome you to our community. And now the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge today that we meet on the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nation. As Unitarians, we are committed to the work of reconciliation required to address the harm done to all Indigenous peoples and their cultures by non-Indigenous peoples. We have much to learn from the Indigenous perspective that the earth is the source of all life, and that it is our responsibility to honor and care for it. And we have a few announcements. First, did you know that our hall is a fragrance-free zone? Some people have severe reactions to scented items, including laundry fragrances, lotions, shampoos, and colognes, and have had to leave the Sunday service because of them. We ask that each of us be respectful of other sensitivities, including scents. And there may not be popcorn, or there might, but there will be candy. Plan to stick around after our service next Sunday, February 15th at 12:30 p.m. for our town hall meeting featuring M&M, Money and Movies. We'll open with updates on our financial plans, including the upcoming canvas and goods and services auction. Our website, ufon.ca, and that's U, F as in Frank, O, N as in Nanaimo, has more detailed information about who we are, the services we offer, and how you can connect with us. Let us now enter into sacred time. Nico Rhodes, our music director, will lead us into worship through music. So just a little bit about this
The composer of this piece. Oh, I didn't let Howard know that I was going to say something, so it's kind of my fault. The composer of this piece is Florence Price. She was one of the earliest that we know of female black composers from the United States. Her music is very romantic and beautiful, and of course, most of it was discovered after she had already passed, as is the case with many female composers. And this is a beautiful melody called Adoration, arranged by Elaine Fine and Nico Rose.
Little doodles.
I'd like to tell you a bit about our musical guests this morning, Nico Rhodes and Alexandra Lee. Nico grew up touring around the globe, surrounded by artists and the world of theater, and is equally comfortable playing jazz, classical, funk, or roots music, orchestrating a symphony, writing musicals, and conducting choirs, including our own. Most recently, he has toured with Patrick Courtin, another one of our former musical directors, in Piano Heist, which celebrates keyboards in all their glory. Along with Jenny Vincent, he has been subbing as our musical director while Leah Hokanson is on sabbatical. Joining Nico this morning is cellist Alexandra Lee. Alexandra is a graduate of the University of Toronto's Music Performance Program and trained as a Royal Conservatory artist educator and Suzuki teacher. She is a member of the Vancouver Island Symphony and teaches at the Nanaimo Conservatory of Music. Like Nico, she enjoys performing in a variety of genres, including children's music. When asked what is her favorite, she often says, "The one on my music stand."
Good morning and welcome, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. For those who don't know me, my name is Debbie Goodman, and I'm a longtime member of the congregation. Thank you for your presence here today. Whatever burdens you may be carrying this morning, I invite you to set them aside for the next hour as we do some collective spiritual renewal. February is Black History Month, and our program this morning focuses on stories of Black pioneers of Canada and of our own community here in Nanaimo and the nearby area. I want to especially thank Nico and Alex for joining us this morning and collaborating with me on the music for this theme and this program. As Alex said, the prelude was Adoration by Florence Price, the first African-American woman to be recognized as a symphonic composer. Florence Price was born in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1887. She was educated at the New England Conservatory of Music, and she lived in Chicago from 1927 until her death in 1953. She composed over 300 musical works in her lifetime. She was also a mother and had a career outside of music, so it's a tremendous accomplishment. And thank you so much for bringing her music to our space this morning. As we begin this morning's journey, I'd like to offer some opening words of contemplation or prayer, however you like to think about it. We gather with grateful hearts to honor Black History Month. We remember the stories of resilience, the strength of ancestors, and the enduring contributions of the Black community to our world. We give thanks for inventors, leaders, and artists whose work has enriched us all. We ask for courage to confront racism and prejudice. We aspire to break down walls of division, dismantle systems of injustice, and build a community founded on equity and love. As we celebrate this month, let us be inspired to act with justice, seek reconciliation, and ensure that the dignity of every individual is upheld. May we continue this work long after February ends, striving for a future where all are truly free and equal. Amen, and may it be so. In that spirit, we'll light our chalice. Our chalice lighting words are from fellow Unitarian Kimberly Ann Tomzak Carlson, and they're entitled People of Memory. We are a people of memory. As inheritors of our ancestors' legacy, we hold their stories tenderly, gleaning wisdom from diverse journeys, united in hope for the future. Guide us to trust in love as we kindle this flame together. And now you are invited to stand as you are willing and able, and we're going to sing hymn 155, Circle Round for Freedom, and we're going to do it 3 times, symbolizing how the call for justice grows and builds. So the first time through, we're just going to have the women's voices singing softly. The second time through, let's have men and women together, just a little louder. And the third time through, big voices and throw in a little harmony if you feel like it. Thanks. Beautiful. We're going to take a little more time for our story for all ages than usual this morning. So I invite you to settle in and bring forth your child self and enjoy. We'll be watching a video excerpt from the book Trailblazers, The Black Pioneers Who Have Shaped Canada. It has two authors, Meryl Royce Nadima Musa and Tiana Ridley Padmore, and the second is the one who will be reading to us this morning. So thank you to the AV team for sharing the video, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, my name is Tiana Ridley Padmore, and I am the author of Trailblazers, The Black Pioneers Who Have Shaped Canada. Welcome to Storytime. So what is Trailblazers? Trailblazers is a love letter, it's an anthology, it's a learning resource, it's a collection of stories. Trailblazers is a children's book that introduces young readers to Canada's history through the undertold stories of 40 incredible Black changemakers. So dating all the way back to 16th century's Matthew da Costa, who was the first Black man known to come to Canada. And Matthew spoke many languages, and he likely arrived to Canada on the same boat as Samuel de Champlain. And he helped maintain peaceful communications and translate between Indigenous peoples and colonists. And the book also includes some present-day changemakers, such as Jean Augustine and Michael Jean. It's so important to be preserving these stories. These leaders shaped our country, they enriched our economy, they contributed to our culture, they brought innovation, they strengthened our policies. And I'm just so happy to be invited to share some of these stories with you today. I thought I would read from Albert Jackson's story first. So Albert Jackson was born in the 1850s, and he would go on to become Canada's very first Black mailman, which was unheard of at the time. The job options that were available to Black men were very limited. But though Albert was hired as a mailman, his path was far from easy, and he had to fight to take up space. And in doing so, he started a national conversation that would go on to help open doors for more Black people that were looking to advance in their careers. Albert Jackson. Albert Jackson was born into slavery, and his older brothers were sold. So his family fled north to find freedom, no idea what the future would hold. When young Albert had finished his studies, he wanted to carry the mail. And though he was hired to do that, white coworkers caused him to fail. On his first day, they just wouldn't train him, simply because he was Black. How absurd that the color of skin was a reason to hold someone back. The press quickly picked up the story, and public opinion divided. While some thought he shouldn't deliver, others remained undecided. But Albert refused to accept this, and his peers organized their support. They demanded investigation. The Prime Minister got a report. The public pressure paid off, and a decision was finally made. Albert became a mail carrier, and for 36 years he stayed. This is Albert Jackson. And fun fact, Albert Jackson's face still appears on stamps that are used today. So long after he passed, he's still helping Canada deliver the mail. Next, I'll read the story of Viola Desmond, which is a little bit better known. Viola Desmond. This is her. In Halifax, Nova Scotia, many years back in time, in the middle of injustice, Viola came to shine. Viola, a businesswoman, took a trip out of town. Her entire life was changed when her car broke down. Stuck in the town of New Glasgow, waiting for car reparations, Viola made a decision that would affect generations. She purchased a movie ticket and headed to the main floor, but the theater was still segregated, so they stopped her at the door. They told her that main floor tickets were not for those of her kind. They ordered Viola upstairs, to the seat she was assigned. But Viola walked into that theater and grabbed a main floor seat, and when they told her to move, Viola refused to retreat. The manager came to remove her, but still Viola contested. The police were summoned then, and Viola was arrested. Viola's case made headlines, prompting public conversation and the province's decision to end racial segregation. Viola became a symbol of equality and persistence. Her action of defiance started a resistance. So this is Viola Desmond. And so the theater that Viola was arrested at just 4 years earlier, Carrie Best, who was the co-founder of a newspaper called The Clarion and another Black changemaker that's featured in this book, was also arrested at the very same theater. So she was arrested for sitting in the section that was reserved for white people only. And so when she heard of Viola being arrested just a few years later, Carrie used her platform, her newspaper, to raise awareness, to raise money for Viola's case. And together, the two women helped introduce some of Canada's first anti-discrimination laws. We think it's a long time ago, but segregation ended in Canada less than 40 years ago. All right, the next story that I'd like to read is the story of Jean Augustine. And Jean Augustine came to Canada as part of a government program that was bringing Black women to Canada to care for the children of white women as they went off and started their careers and entered the workforce. So Jean Augustine came to Canada in that program, but she went on to become Canada's very first Black woman elected to Parliament. And as part of her role in Parliament, she introduced Canada's celebrations of Black History Month. So it's in huge part to her that we are preserving these stories and that we're given the opportunities to amplify and celebrate Black history. Jean Augustine was raised in Grenada's Happy Hill. She was studious, charismatic, and driven by her will. As women entered the workforce and started their career, Canada needed nannies for the children these women would bear. The West Indian Domestic Scheme was introduced with some conditions. Only the healthy, single, and young could come for these positions. The scheme was far from perfect, but Jean saw it as a door. Though she started as a nanny, she made it something more. See, not that long ago, in 1993, Jean made her mark as Canada's first female Black MP. Elected again and again, 4 times to be exact, Jean moved Canadians forward with each and every act. Jean helped unite the nation with incredible ambition. She taught us to move forward through historical recognition. So that's Miss Jean Augustine. And Jean today continues to be a leading voice in championing the preservation and celebration of Canada's history. So I want to end story time by reading the introduction poem to Trailblazers. And I hope that these leaders have inspired you. I hope that they have encouraged you to go and seek out more of our history, to feel valued, to know your worth, to know that you too can blaze a trail. And I hope that you continue on your journey of learning and listening and taking action for what's right. Dear reader, Canada didn't just let you in, you actually helped to build it. Indigenous peoples cared for their land, and many others filled it. This book is a way to express our thanks and unwavering admiration for the pioneers who paved the way and changed the entire nation. These leaders are beacons of freedom, embodying strength through adversity. They offer a testament to the breadth of Canada's rich diversity. This is the story of a few heroes who have remained unsung, but there are so many, many more than these. This story has just begun. From activists, athletes, and artists to community leaders and teachers, I hope in this book you can see yourself and find some common features. And when it's your turn to make your mark, glass ceilings you will shatter, because you are brave and special and true, and especially because you matter. Thank you.
So we heard about some very resilient people in our Time for All Ages, and we're going to meditate on resilience now. This is the time in the service set aside for meditation. So I invite you to get comfortable. You can close your eyes if you wish and focus on your breathing. And rather than a time of shared silence today, I'm going to read some introductory words, and then we're going to have a beautiful piece of original contemplative music performed by Nico and Alex. And that will be the time to turn your thoughts towards the music and the message. Fireweed is a powerful symbol of resilience, known as one of the first plants to regenerate in landscapes devastated by wildfires. Often called a phoenix flower, it represents hope and renewal, thriving in harsh, disturbed environments. It serves as a natural metaphor for endurance, healing, and the ability to grow back stronger after adversity. And so we present Fireweed Valley.
Fireweed field. Sometimes I fight and sometimes I heal. Fireweed mountain, fireweed glen. Despite the burns, I will love again. Black shadow, black trees, scorched ground, no blazing hot, love burned, desolation in return. Fireweed valley, fireweed field, sometimes I fight and sometimes I yield. Fireweed mountain, fireweed glen, despite the burns I will love again. Fireweed valley, fireweed field. Sometimes I fight and sometimes I yield. Fireweed mountain, fireweed glen. Despite the burns, I will love again. Black terrain, black earth, digging deep for self-worth. Bare ground, planted seed, the glory of the fireweed, the glory of the fireweed, the glory of the
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. In late January, I made a change in my reading habits. Up until then, I would read the New York Times online every day, but I was finding it too depressing. So I paused my subscription for 8 weeks, and I'm reading Canadian Geographic magazine online every day in its place. And I'm enjoying it so much, I'm thinking this is going to be a permanent change. The first article I read was by a fine Canadian, Wade Davis, and it was entitled North Star, Reflections on Canada and Being Canadian. I'd like to begin our reflection this morning with an excerpt from that article. Davis writes, "Not 3 months before his death, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke of Canada's place in the firmament of freedom. Deep in our history of struggle, King said, Canada was the North Star. The Negro slave, denied education, dehumanized, imprisoned on cruel plantations, knew that far to the north, a land existed where a fugitive slave, if they survived the horrors of the journey, could find freedom." Continuing the quote, "The legendary Underground Railroad started in the South and ended in Canada. Our spirituals were often codes. We sang of heaven that awaited us, and the slave masters listened in innocence, not realizing that we were not speaking of the hereafter. Heaven was the word for Canada, and the Negro sang of the hope that his escape on the Underground Railroad would carry him there. One of our spirituals, Follow the Drinking Gourd, by the way, it's in our Unitarian hymnal, contained directions for escape. The gourd was the Big Dipper, and the North Star to which its handle pointed gave the celestial map that directed the flight to the Canadian border." Dr. King's words make me very proud to be Canadian, and they paint a vision of our country that I would love to recount and reinforce for you this morning. But alas, the truth is more nuanced, more complicated, and more tragic. The story we share this morning is like the fireweed, a story of thriving in an adverse environment, a story of endurance and resilience. It begins with an enduring landmark in Nanaimo, which I will ask Ruth to share with us now. And I'll invite a little audience participation. I'd like to ask if anyone knows what this is and where it is, and you don't need a microphone. You can call it out, and I'll repeat it to everyone on this microphone. Anybody? Nico's thinking.
I've seen it, but I don't remember where.
Is it just off of Wellington Road,
Oh, you're.
near the Cavallotti lot?
Yeah, it's on across from the SPCA, but it's gone now, I believe. I think it's been flattened.
Not quite. Good guesses, but not quite. This is still here. This is the Stark family barn located on Extension Road in Nanaimo next to Chase River Elementary School. And Ruth, would you please share the next slide? And we'll look at the location together. Now, I know this is a little bit hard. So near the top center, you see the red roof. That's Chase River Elementary School. And then below that, you see a big field where the kids play. There's actually a lot of construction going on there right now. And then there's kind of a homestead. There's a next to the field, kind of near the bottom end of it. And that's where the barn exists. By the way, on the right-hand center side of this slide, if any of you remember Eleanor Wenberg, who used to attend here, that was her dad's farm that she took over. And Eleanor has moved now, and the family has sold the farm, but that's where Eleanor's farm was. And across Extension Road there, Bob and I used to live on Cowling Place, and we used to walk by Stark's barn and across those railroad tracks that ran by their property every day with our dog. But initially, we didn't know what it was. It was only later that we learned a little bit about the history of this place. And Ruth, I think you can go to the next slide. If you go looking for the barn, you will also find a stone monument commemorating the Stark family, which is shown on this slide. And this monument is also located on the Chase River Elementary School property. And it was established through the work of the Nanaimo African Heritage Society some years ago. So I'd like to share with you a book excerpt that was published in the Victoria Times Columnist in September of 2020, tracing the story of the family. And if Ruth will go to the next slide, you will see the book. I've also brought it today, so you're welcome to take a look at it. This is available at the library. It's called On Their Own Terms, True Stories of Trailblazing Women of Vancouver Island. And this is the author, Haley Healy. And you can take the slides down now. We won't be needing them for a bit. So Haley Healy writes, Salt Spring Island, the traditional territory of the Cowichan Coast Salish peoples, is known for its tranquil beaches, lively harbors, hip shops, charming roadside farm stands, and established farmers markets brimming with artisans and farmers. In the mid-19th century, it was a place of untouched forest, green hills, lakes, and valleys perfect for farming. Immigrants from Hawaii, Japan, and Europe eventually settled there, but the first settlers were from California. In 1860, Sylvia and Louis Stark, African Americans from California, arrived on Salt Spring Island in search of freedom, land, and a life free of discrimination. Former slaves from Missouri and Kentucky, respectively, they had met in California. When legal and educational limitations began affecting their freedoms, it was time to move again. They were not prepared to lose the freedom they had worked so hard to achieve. James Douglas, Vancouver Island's governor at the time, invited hundreds of African Americans from California to settle on Vancouver Island and the surrounding Gulf Islands. Concerned about American incursions, he wanted to increase the Canadian population. In 1858, 800 African Americans arrived on the Saanich Peninsula. There's a museum exhibit up in Saanich about this, by the way, all month. From there, They spread out to various locations on Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands. 2 or 3 dozen of them went to Salt Spring Island. Sylvia and Louis Stark arrived in 1860. Sylvia's father, Howard Estes, was born a slave in Clay County, Missouri. In 1852, he bought his and his family's freedom for $4,000. And I want to tell you, I went to AI to find out the current value of $4,000 in 1852. It would be about 175,000 US dollars that he had to generate to free his family. Sylvia was living in Placerville, California, when she met Louis Stark, who was dairy farming at the time. Louis had been born into slavery on a plantation in Louisville, Kentucky, and at some point bought his freedom for $1,500. Sylvia and Louis were married in California and had their first 2 children, Willis and Serena, there. To get to Salt Spring Island, Sylvia and Louis sailed on the Black Diamond from Saanich to Salt Spring Island. As was customary back then, the schooner dropped them off away from shore, and they swam ashore with their belongings and their herd of livestock. 200 acres of Salt Spring Island mountainside wilderness was their very own. So were freedom, equality, and a life free of discrimination. Pioneer life was not easy, but they were free. The oath of allegiance they took upon arriving in Canada gave them the rights and privileges of British subjects. Their acreage was located near Vesuvius Bay, and the family immediately set to work felling trees to build a house, barn, and fences. Sylvia and Louis also had 3 more children, one of whom they named Emma Arabella Stark. We're going to be hearing more about her in a bit. After 2 of their fellow immigrants on Salt Spring Island were murdered, Louis and Sylvia feared for their family's safety. One of the men had been their hired help, and the other was a Sunday school teacher. Louis requested his preemption land rights be transferred to the coal mining town of Nanaimo, and the family moved to a 365-acre property in the Cranberry area of Nanaimo, next to the current-day Chase River Elementary School. Louis planted many apple and other fruit trees on their new farm. The Starks valued education, and at some point sent Emma and her sister Marie to North Cedar School, as there was no school in the Cranberry area at the time. Back then, it was common for students who lived far from school to live in a cabin beside the school during the week. Emma and Marie did this, since their house was more than 13 kilometers away from the North Cedar School. Sylvia would come and get the girls to bring them home on weekends. They traveled by horseback, little sister Marie riding with their mother, and Emma riding her own horse. When the bridge over the Cedar River was being repaired, Emma would likely have ridden through water so deep that her legs would have been submerged in the cold river water. In winter, they traveled in a hand-built, oxen-pulled sled. Sylvia missed the quiet in her community on Salt Spring Island. Their Chase River property's proximity to coal mines had caused it to shake and vibrate constantly. After some time in Nanaimo, Sylvia returned to Salt Spring Island, moving to a farm where her son Willis lived. Emma and her father remained in Nanaimo. In 1895, when Emma was 11 years old, tragedy struck the Stark family. Late one night, Louis was found dead at the bottom of a cliff near the family's farm. Their neighbor, a butcher, told police that Louis had been hunting when he last saw him. Louis's death was mysterious. Foul play was suspected, and the butcher was the prime suspect. The motive was thought to concern the Starks' land, which contained large amounts of coal. A prominent family of Nanaimo coal miners, Dunsmuir, had apparently approached Lewis asking to buy the land, but Lewis had refused to sell. He had worked too hard farming and growing those fruit trees to sell his land for coal development. An inquest was held, but there wasn't enough evidence for a conviction and nobody was charged. Some think the butcher was hired by the Nanaimo coal mining family who wanted to mine Stark's land. Some say the mining family paid the butcher $50 to commit the murder, and when found not guilty, the butcher left for England with his money. Lewis Stark was buried in the Nanaimo Municipal Cemetery on Bowen Road, and a large headstone remains today bearing his name. Despite her father's tragic death, Emma finished high school and became a teacher. At that time, a high school diploma was the only qualification a teacher needed. On August 1st, 1874, 18-year-old Emma became the first black school teacher on Vancouver Island when she was hired to teach at the new Cedar Cranberry School, a one-room schoolhouse that students traveled far distances to attend. She taught there until 1879, earning $40 a month, and was said to be a competent teacher who was well-liked by her students. She lived with her sister Marie in a small cabin by the school, as it wasn't practical for her to travel more than 13 kilometers each way to her family property in Chase River. In 1878, Emma married James Clark in Victoria. From her marriage to her death, little is known of her life. She died young, age only 33, and her cause of death is unknown. She was buried on Salt Spring Island next to her grandfather, Howard Estes. You may remember he's the one who paid $4,000 to liberate his family. Emma's mom, Sylvia, later became a prominent personality on Salt Spring Island. Depending on which source you consult, she lived to be 105, more or less making her the oldest person on the island at the time of her death. The Stark Farm is now a heritage property in Nanaimo. At the time of writing of this book, the barn still stands, and it still does today, on Extension Road beside Chase River Elementary School. Stark Lake in the Extension area of Nanaimo, and Stark Landing, where the railroad passed the Stark family orchard and cattle fields, are all named after the family. And in the quaint Old City section of Nanaimo's downtown at 331 Wesley Street, where she once lived, a plaque bears Emma Stark's name. So I'll ask Ruth if she could share an additional slide. So this is a portrait of Emma Stark, the school teacher, and you also see the plaque from the Old City Quarter that's dedicated to her. It was put there in 1999 during the city of Nanaimo's 125th anniversary, and it honors her as the first black school teacher on Vancouver Island. And please leave the slide up. This is where we leave the passage from local author Haley Healy and return to the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So, was Canada heaven for Lewis Stark, Sylvia Estes Stark, and their descendants? Not exactly. But what a story they lived of pursuing their freedom, their dreams, and their own destiny on Salt Spring Island and here in Nanaimo. And Ruth, could you go to the next slide now? If the computer cooperates. Thank you. If you're interested in learning more about this history this month or any time, I'd like to leave you with a resource. So you see a screenshot on the right that I took from Digital Museums of Canada. They have an online portal dedicated to British Columbia's Black pioneers, It's fantastic. And you will find many inspiring stories there, or you can explore this morning's story further. And for example, here is a photo of Howard Estes, Emma Stark's grandfather, who purchased his family's freedom. And next to his image, you see the Deed of Emancipation from 1852. You can take a look at it. So these are all available at your fingertips through the Digital Museum. And you can take that down now, Ruth. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here this morning and for listening to these stories. Our little town, our province, and our country hold the stories of generations. I hope their stories have sparked something for you today. Curiosity, appreciation, pride, maybe astonishment. As you consider what you have heard, please enjoy this musical postlude from Nico and Alex. It's an original composition of theirs entitled Anthem.
Just going to share that I wrote this melody at a time where I was sort of seeking radical acceptance and really pondering that. And when I played this melody for Alex, she immediately set these beautiful words to it. So you're the first people to hear these. Yes. So if you don't like it, ready? Cozy? No? Scared? Good, good, good.
You walk down the only road you've ever known. You speak words that you've been taught to say. You've been told that there is only one right path, but there is another way. Take off the lenses placed before your eyes and make decisions of your own. There are 7 billion other ways to see the world than the one that you were shown. 7 billion ways that you can raise a child. 7 billion ways to make a home. 7 billion ways to find success in life. But there's one thing they all know. If love is at the center of who you are, if love is at the core of all your words, if love is there when the rain has come again, then you have made a better world. 7 billion ways that you can raise a child. 7 billion ways to make a home. 7 billion ways to find success in life. But there's one thing they all know. If love is at the center of who you are, if love is at the core of all your words, if love is there when the rain has come, the pain
not a singer, for the record.
Right.
We all agree. Yes, we all agree. We're both not singers.
Yeah.
Hey, Nico, stories, we read in the storybooks.
Well, I had to get out my hanky there. Gee. Yeah. Anyway. And now it's time for joys and sorrows. You may have noticed that we started using the name joys and sorrows for this part of the service rather than joys and concerns. That's because we want to set aside this time to talk about the truly significant personal milestones in our lives. It's a time for listening, empathizing, supporting, and caring. In that spirit, we would ask that people not use joys and sorrows as a time for announcements or political statements, and that you keep your statements brief, about a minute or two. We'll begin with those of you in the hall, and then we'll invite those attending via Zoom. Water bowl for the joys and sorrows that have been left unspoken. I ask that you hold in your heart everything that you have heard and felt. And now it is time for our offering. For those of us in the hall, Charlotte Joyner and Sharon Bolt will now pass the baskets for the offering. And for those of you with us for the first or second time, we consider your presence to be your contribution. Feel free to let the basket pass. Those online can go to our website and click the big blue donate button on the homepage to give. To help the wider community, half of all cash donations will be given to our charity of the month. Our charity this month is Community Circles Restorative Justice Society, a nonprofit that provides restorative justice and conflict mediation services for free to individuals, groups, and organizations on Vancouver Island. If your donation is by e-transfer or check, and you want it to be shared with our charity of the month, please make a note of that on your e-transfer or check. And for those of you who don't carry cash, we now accept donations via debit or credit cards. This can be done at our welcoming table near the entry doors after the service. Thank you for your generosity towards our congregation and our community. As we celebrate Black History Month, let us be inspired to act with justice, seek reconciliation, and ensure that the dignity of every individual is upheld. May we continue this work long after February ends, striving for a future where all are truly free and equal. Go forth this morning in peace and in that spirit. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We are almost at the end of our service. After we sing Carry the Flame, you can join a social group, both online and in person. Breakout rooms will be available online for 30 minutes. We will have snacks and social time in the hall after the service. I want to thank the many people who have given their time and energy to make today's service so wonderful. The Sunday Services Committee, the audiovisual team, our very special musical guests, Nico Rhodes and Alexandra Lee, and our speaker, Debbie Goodman, the greeters and offering collectors, those at the welcoming table, the kitchen volunteers who come early and stay late for cleanup, and those who brought food and flowers. We'll now sing our final song, Carry the Flame. The words are on the back and the side wall. Please stand as you are able and hold hands or touch elbows as you feel comfortable.
Well, you're our first ever audience.